Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, up to Sabah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Naimbag na rabi, masanto siya sa labid si kaya amin, Maya, pabengi keka, marahing nabanggi sa inugubos, maupay nga gabi, iyo nga tanadina, buenas noches. Ito po ang Republika, ako po si Erik Espina. Sa pagkakataong ito, well tonight, karong higayuna, kuha ng atong kahinabi, usas mga tawag natong amahan gyud sa Citizens Armed Force Development sa atong nasod. He is the father of the Citizens Armed Force Development along with our AFP Chief of Staff in time for the 41st National Reservist Week celebration. And we're going to get some sort of a understanding, a status report as to where and what is the direction now of our reservist training, our reservist recruitment, in terms of, as well as Citizens Armed Force Development in terms of territorial defense for the entire country. So we are very fortunate to have for Republika none other than Rear Admiral RAMIL Enriquez, AFP. He is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Reservist and Retiree Affairs, and he is right there at the General Headquarters, Camp Aguinaldo in Manila. Good evening, Admiral.
Good evening, Erik. Og sa mga tanang naminaw og nagtanaw karon sa imong programa.
Admiral, some people might be surprised. The local audience here will be surprised that you are able to speak in Cebuano. So they might think you come from Davao or Cagayan de Oro. As a brief backgrounder, please tell us where you come from and where is your real born soil, so to speak?
Actually, the Enriquez clan where I came from is actually or has its roots in Karkar.
Okay.
Pero nagdako ko sa Medellin, Cebu, sa sud sa compound sa Bugo Medellin Milling Company. Mm-hmm. So basically Cebuano through and through. Mm. My parents are from Karkar and Medellin respectively. Mm. So antod ko nag-college sa University of San Carlos Chemical Engineering.
Oh, okay.
Until I joined the Philippine Military Academy last 1984.
Ah, okay. And then kuan unsay ngalan sa class sa PMA, Admiral?
I belong to the PMA Maringal class of 1988.
I see. And then and the family comes from your beloved spouse comes from?
I am married to Carmina Javier. Mm-hmm. She is from Taytay, Rizal. So naanak ko sa Taytay, Rizal karon nagpuyo.
Oh, as a sidelight, Admiral, I understand you were in the running for becoming the flag officer in command for the Philippine Navy. I don't know if our research is correct, but please correct us if we are wrong.
Early this year, my name was one of the was in the short list for running for the flag officer in command when our former POIC, Vice Admiral Robert M. Pedrad retired. Mm. Now the current flag officer in command is Vice Admiral Giovanni Carlo Bacordo. Mm-hmm. So now I am occupying my current position as the Deputy Chief of Staff for Reservist and Retiree Affairs J9 there is Camp Aguinaldo.
Sir, a final question on a personal note. Why did you join the Navy? Why not the Air Force? Why not the Army?
In my particular case, during our time in 1988 when we graduated, ang sistema noon, draw lots.
Ah, okay.
So I left my fate to the ping pong balls na naay mga pangalan sa Navy, PC, Army, o Air Force. So when I got the ping pong ball with the marking sa Philippine Navy, so sabi ko, muna na atong destiny. So I was a Navy officer ever since.
Okay.
Pero before the Navy, my first assignment really was with the Philippine Coast Guard.
Okay.
So na-assign ko diya sa Arellano Boulevard sa Pier 3 sa headquarters sa 2nd Coast Guard District.
I see. Oh, this was the time when the Coast Guard was still part of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, is that right?
Yes, the Coast Guard was then one of the major units of the Navy until 1997 when they were separated and relegated to the Department of Transportation and Communications then.
I see. And then, so I'll ask you, Admiral, no? We're celebrating the 41st National Reservist Week celebration. Some people might be thinking, 41, is that how young the reservist is only? We're only 41 years old. How did it come about that it's actually only the 41st anniversary?
Actually, there is a presidential decree declaring actually December 2 to December 10 as the National Reservist Week.
Okay.
We just celebrated it, culminated it yesterday, February 18. September 18, kay naay mga lain nga conflict na schedule.
Yes.
But also the araw ng Laang Kawal, ang National Reservist Day is actually September 2.
Okay.
It is by virtue of a presidential decree. But if you look into our history,
Yes.
Ever since before, na mga reservists, actually we consider Lapu-Lapu as the first reservist nga ni sukol sa mga puwersa nga gikan sa laing nasod. So in history, pero it was just formalized through a presidential decree. That's why it's just the 41st National Reservist Week bago lang.
There are some Cebuanos, Admiral, knowing the inclination of the President towards Lapu-Lapu, who are looking at the possibility of maybe we can have this amended and make the National Reservist Week on April during the victory of Lapu-Lapu. But I'm just throwing that down the line. Maybe that could be one of the considerations in the future.
Actually, that news also reached us kay si Presidente gihimo na tagan na importante sila Lapu-Lapu na nasa award karon nga tawag niya the Order of Lapu-Lapu. So kay mugid kuno to ang una gid nga hero nato nga dapat nga tangkilik sa atong mga kanasuran.
But
ato nang i-post siguro sa Department of National Defense kay kinahanglan man na siya
yes.
Further legislative action kay bisag presidential decree mo ato gyapon punta sa Malacanang para approval ni presidente.
Okay, we Cebuanos will look forward to that, Admiral. Oo. Kaning appeal. You are currently now the J9, no, the Deputy Chief of Staff for the Reservist Retiree Affairs. People cannot understand what are all these numbers. What basically is the function of your office?
As the title connotes, Deputy Chief of Staff. Ako ang primary staff sa atong Chief of Staff Armed Forces of the Philippines na karon si Lieutenant General Gilbert Gapay. Who advises him on matters on retirees and the service affairs. Kay daghan man na siya o mga laing staff. Ang numerical number nga 9 is reserved for the service and retirees affairs function of the armed forces. So ako bali ang primary staff to this effect. So katong gisulti nimo ganiya nga the father, thank you for the honor, pero ang ato yung head para sa anya na si Chief of Staff yun. So ako lang mo abiba sa iya mo
tabang
kay basically ang akong specialization on reservist and retirees affairs. So mahog kong atong ibutang subject matter expert.
Okay.
For this. Pero ang decision I will recommend to him through channels, then he will approve, will either approve or disapprove my recommendation.
It's part of your function, retiree affairs. How is the combination? I mean, you have reservists on one and then the retirees. How does that work? I mean, is it more difficult on your part? Would you rather that this be given to PBAW or any other staffs? What do you think?
Actually, there is a move now for right now. The veterans are under PBAW,
Yes.
Veterans Federation of the Philippines, but we also cater to them because most of the retirees or the veterans also came from the ranks of the armed forces. So we have a commonality in this aspect. But right now, yung pag-abot sa financial mga pension nila, ang tibaw ang mo take charge, we just give the policy. Right now, we are catering to our veterans na who died. So muna ang among one of our primary functions now to take care of our veterans who passed away aron mahimutang sila ngadto sa ilang mga lubnganan. In most cases diri sa Manila sa libingan ng mga bayani. So we take care of them. We see to it that the proper honors and respect due them are given. Muna ang among karon function. Pero pag abot sa financial matters, ang tibaw ang mo take charge kay bureau man na sila sa DND.
How is the relationship between OJ9, your office, vis-a-vis, for example, the other service 9s or the Army 9, Navy 9, and then the Air Force 9s?
Sa major service, they have their own reserve commands.
Yes.
Army Reserve Command, the Naval Reserve Command for the Navy, the Air Force Reserve Command, and we have one more, yung AFP Reserve Command, yung APRESCOM kung tanawon.
Yes, yes.
As my function, I have direct supervision over the 9s.
Okay.
Pero ang katong sa mga reserve commands, we leave it to the major service commanders to supervise their units. But in terms of policy, ako ang mutanaw kung if they are following policies, and at the same time, I'm open to their suggestions which policies are supposed to be rewritten or modified to suit the current needs or the current situation. So, as much as possible, I do not go direct to the RESCOMs because as a staff, ang direct supervisory staff na akong gihandle ang mga 9 sa mga major services o ang counterpart nila sa APRESCOM. But I leave it to the Commanding General of the Philippine Army, the FOIC of the Navy, the CGPAP of the Air Force to run the unit which yung reserve commands nila.
How about the AFP Reserve Command? And who would be in control of the AFP Reserve Command? Because you mentioned the RESCOM Army is with the CGPA, and then they have their own respective commanding officers and generals. When it comes to the AFP Reserve Command, to whom does the AFP Reserve Command report to?
By virtue, si APRESCOM ay isang major unit ng AFP, ng General Headquarters. Supposedly, si Chief of Staff yung kanyang supervisor. Pero dahil ako yung staff na mamahala sa function na yon, dumadaan sa akin. Pero ang mga decisions ay nakay Vice Chief of Staff. Naka-delegate sa kanya.
Okay.
Medyo may kunting yan dahil ang mga technical service ang kinikilala nila na interim head ng mga promotion ng technical service si Deputy Chief of Staff, but as a unit si Vice Chief of Staff ang namamahala sa kanila.
Is this a new policy or matagal na itong ganitong flow of
This is not
bago lang.
not so old. It so happened na nag-download lang si Chief of Staff ng responsibility, dinelegate niya doon sa kanya mga staff. Ako as a staff of the Chief of Staff, ang bastonero talaga namin yung Deputy Chief of Staff. Pero yung mga GHQ units, si Vice Chief of Staff ang namamahala sa kanila. So he sees to it, he conducts visit, he inspects them to make sure kung ano yung problema o kailangan nila.
People will be wondering, no? Who are the AFP reservists? I mean, who are considered reservists?
Sa ating constitution, sinasabi doon na yung Filipino citizens or civilians who volunteer to undergo military training and be part of the AAP Reserve is considered a reservist. Yung right now, there is a new policy in 2019 promulgated by DND na mandatory na yung lahat na mag-retire galing sa armed forces ay reservist na. Whereas before, it's a voluntary obligation kung gusto nila mag-join. Because after serving for more than 30 years, baka sabi nila, pagod na ako, Pero
They can manifest. They can manifest they want to join. Dati.
Yes.
Oo.
Before, they can manifest and they would like to be incorporated or assimilated into the reserve force. Pero sa parte ng mga civilian, we would like to recruit them as long as they are willing to be part of the AFP Reserve Force. Ang siste kasi, Eric, according to our laws and constitution, the AFP is a civilian volunteer force. But nakalagay doon na the nation shall have a regular force to supplement the citizens force. Ang actually ang ratio niyan is 20-80 when in times of crisis o God forbid na magkagereta, the fighting force will 80% of the fighting force will come from the AFP reserves. 20% will come from the regular force. So that's why we are trying to make a credible force na according to our latest national defense strategy, we are calling for 1% of the population. So basically, we would like to have a minimum of 1 million reserve force na ready reserves. Hindi to standby, hindi retired reserves.
Well, we're going to leave you with a question before we pause for a break. Some people are asking, no? Do we really need ready reserves? Do we really need that many reservists? And why do we need them when Republika returns? Okay, balik ta sa atong programang Republika. Kahinabi agya po nato si Rear Admiral RAMIL Enriquez, AFP. Siya ang Deputy Chief of Staff for Reservists and Retiree Affairs, J9. So, is it still rational for us to have to strengthen our reserve force? Why do the Philippine state needs a 1% number of reservists for our country? How would we explain this?
Let's look into the strength of the armed forces. We are basically around 120,000. Divided into the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. Pero kung tanaw na to, ang mga units na to, ang atong mga commanders maingon na kulang pa ang atong mga puwersa. In times of calamities and disasters, the first responders are normally coming from the military. Pero ingon sila nga kuwang pa. So that's why we have a reservist law, Republic Act 7077, which called for the reserves. Duha ka nakabuk na serbisyo ang pwede natong kuhaon. Ang kanang military auxiliary service, kani karon ang atong mga CAFGU o CAFGU atong una nga Citizens Armed Auxiliary karon. Reservist na sila. Pero tan-awon sa uban Army pero actually reservist. O kaning civil auxiliary service. Daghan og gamit in times of socio-economic situations, ang atong mga sa pag-maintain sa local peace and order, sa delivery of health services, very evident ang atong mga reservists karon kaning panahon na naay COVID-19 nga pandemic. If you will notice, there are people manning our checkpoints, relief centers, and enforcing curfew. Pero in tanaw nimo closely, dili na sila mga regular troops, mga reservists na to, na volunteering their services, despite they're having their own jobs, but they volunteer their time and their effort to serve the country, to help our local governments. In my remarks during the celebration of the 41st National Reservist Week, I said I would like to honor 2 of our reservists who died in the line of duty during this COVID-19 pandemic. So daghan sila og matabang. So kung magsalig ka lang sa atong kapulisan o sa atong mga military, murag mo kuwang. Kay mayon ta kung wala tay lain nga problema, to sample ka ng local insurgency problem nato, pwede mo mo sustainer siguro ang atong mga pwersa, but in this case our regular troops are preoccupied with the peace and order situation. We need our reservists to fill in the gaps.
If you were in Congress, Admiral, no, one of the legislators, senators, or congressman would ask you, please give us an idea, where are we as far as the status of the reservist organizations is concerned? Because part of the Armed Forces of the Philippines force structure is yung sinasabi nilang strategy-driven, concept-led, capability-based planning. And then a while ago, you mentioned kailangan 1%, no? So that's about 1
Yes.
million, and then 80-20 ang combination ng regular vis-a-vis the reserve force. So if a legislator will ask you, please give us an idea, where are we in terms of reservist development?
Let's take numbers for the first item. Currently, we have 728,000 listed reservists. But sa category ng ating mga reservists, meron yung first category, ito yung mga ready reserves. Nandiyan yung ating mga affiliated reserve units, companies or organizations incorporated into the structure. Example, ang hospital, kanang naa sa Davao, o kaning National Power Grid Corporation of the Philippines, they are part of the reserve force. Pero ang atong mga fighting force, kanirang atong mga ready reserves. So basically, nasa 90,000 lang sila. If we talk about 1 million, so basically we need 900,000 more.
Yes.
So ang problema sa atong reservist ang kakulangan sa pondo. We need to support them in terms of uniforms, training, so uban pang mga equipment kay ato silang gamiton sa humanitarian disaster assistance and disaster response.
Yes.
Pero kuwang ta og mga rubber boats, mga trucks nga ilang gamiton ug ilang mga gamit sa sample sa earthquake kanang naimo collapse nga building. So basically we need the funds. But ang strategic direction nato, we need our reservists to be able to perform the functions of the regular force. So we would like to train them into their specialization. For example, ang pinaka-basic ang atong mga infantry. So natay mga reservists nga ready reserve battalions, atong i-train for war fighting. Pero looking into the armed forces, not every one of us are really the first line fighters. We know how to fight, but we have specialized people to fight. We also need people in logistics, in communications, in our hospitals. Kumbaga sa dili sa front line kundi sa rear echelon nato mga support units.
Yes.
So natay mga drivers, natay mga signal o mga radio operators. Muna ang atong i-train. Sa army, ang very evident kanang atong armor unit nga reservist o gatong artillery kanang mo gamit sa kanyon. We need to be assured na ang atong mga reservists are capable of fulfilling the task of the ones who are with them.
Yes.
Kay just in case na God forbid also nga in kagera ang atong mga regular troops mo nga sa front line kung mahurot o ma-decimate sila, natay mga lain nga second echelon forces to follow through. So we do not need or we do not want to train everyone to be riflemen, but we need them to be specialized. Kaya aron just in a basic corporation, dili tanan finance, dili tanan admin, dili tanan transportation, dili tanan fieldmen. So we need them to be all rounded to cover all the aspects of the military organization.
Okay.
One more thing, we are encountering a major problem in the sense that our reservists, as ang tawag nato sa ila mga weekend warriors, kay they can report for training only on weekends kay naa sila trabaho.
Yes.
But when we call them for long-term training, mga maabot nag 2 weeks, naa na sila problema sa kanilang mga employers.
Yes.
Kay mangita na wa may mo perform.
Yes.
But this is a necessary factor because we need to train them. What we are trying to do now with Congress is try to legislate a bill into law. Ang tawag na to ani katong Reservist Employment Rights Act. So just like the National Guards of the United States, when they report for duty, the employer has no recourse but to allow them because it's provided by law. And when they come back, they will still have a job that they can go back to. Kasi ang nangyayari sa atin, dahil matagal na wala, pinalitan ng employer. Kasi sabi na, so we are now, this was introduced into the 17th Congress, pero naabtan og sarado. Now we are on the 18th Congress. We are supposed to be conducting the second and third hearing by this period. Ang problema lang, naabtan taog COVID, kaya medyo na-delay ng konti, but it's still there. So we would like to pass this bill before the end of the 18th Congress. So we need to fast track this, and we would like to get the support of our legislator friends. Kay siguro kibaw man saga na hindi lang kukonti yung mga legislators natin na mga reservists din. So they understand the problem.
In this proposed bill that you have come up with, have we increased the penalties for employers who will violate this? I mean, I think that's one way of making it, so that they will end up really following it.
That was one of the highlights of the discussion during the last hearing, committee hearing by the Committee on National Defense. Kasi accordingly, meron na yung provision sa RA 7077, pero it is not very clear in the implementing rules and regulations. So we are now trying to strengthen put some teeth into the law. So we need to have this bill with the proper penalties. Not only penalties, but also the accolades accompanying this law.
When you talk about this bill, no, is there some kind of a mechanism where there are only 1 or 2 employees for every business establishments that will be required to render some kind of military training or called in by the government? Or it's like there is really no number in terms of what the employer can allow or will be allowed to enter into some sort of a military training? Kasi baka yung ibang employer dyan isipin, baka yung buong mga 10 o 20 ng aking mga empleyado makuha ninyo. So that is not part of the provision.
Actually, we have whole companies, EPSA for one, under kang former Congressman Brigadier General Charito Planas, is an affiliated reserve. They're applying to be affiliated reserve unit. So that means everyone in the company is a member. We have the Mission Hospital here in Pasig. The whole hospital, from the president down to the yung mga ambulance drivers, are members of organized military unit. So they have their organization based doon sa structure ng hospital. So when we use them, everyone goes. Parang apit sa tanan. So in the former in context, ang atong mga reservists ay supposedly volunteers. But if they volunteer in a personal capacity, the company cannot do otherwise kundi payagan sila.
People who are watching us, they want to become reservists, they will be asking, what are the documentary requirements for to become a reservist? And then that's the first question. The second question is, how long does the entire process take before I am able to volunteer my services to the Armed Forces of the Philippines?
Okay, there are 2 types of people entering the reserve force. Ang isa yung sa enlisted, yung isa officers.
Yes.
By virtue that officers are supposed to be commissioned officers, the process will reach up to Malacanang. So there is a process from the major service, the general headquarters in Aguinaldo, the Department of Defense, until the President signs your commissionship into the reserve force. On the other hand, ang mga enlisted nato will only reach the level of the commanding general of the army, the PN of the head of the medical service. So mas mabilis yun. Now, if we have interested people trying to look into going into the reserves, we have a website actually.
Oh, yes.
You can search and Facebook also the web page of the Office of the J9. But let me clarify. An individual who wishes to join the reserve force will first ask himself which branch of service will he join. Kasi basi gusto niya mag-army o gusto niya mag-navy o gusto niya mag-air force. Kaya naanay mga lain-lain nga branch of service nga you can join. And for AFRESCOM, these people are the technical service. The members of AFRESCOM who are commissioned into the reserve force are normally doctors, nurses, priests, lawyers, professors, dentists. So may technical skills sila. So if you want to join AFRESCOM because by virtue you are a lawyer, you can do so and join up the AFP Reserve Command. But if you want to join a particular branch of service, you go to the particular website of the branch of service you want to join, and there you can see the qualifications that are required.
People would like to know, how about the time motion for the application? How long does it take? That's the first question. The second question is, are the standards uniform? Are they do they share the same common requirements in terms of the Army, Navy, and Air Force and AFP Reserve Command? How long does it take? And lain-lain ba ni sila?
Ang steps supposedly ay dali ra ang steps.
Oo.
Ang madugay man lang good kay by virtue that you are joining a military organization, ang kanang mga national security checks, mga background checks ang magpadugay. But once you hurdle that, the steps in the case of officers, I can assure you that it will take less than a month. As long as all the paperwork are in order, ang dili lang namo kapugngan diri kay ang level namo kutubra sa Armed Forces of the Philippines, ang among dili namo makontrol ang level sa Department of National Defense, ug labay na katong sa Malacañang. Kay di na mo masultian ng taga Malacañang dali-dalion. Kay they also have their own ways of checking data and records. But kung sa enlisted, in less than a month, mahuman.
Basta na serial number, no? Makakuanda yun.
Matagaan og serial number, yes.
Diretso
Ang kuan sa ang requirement, isa sa mga requirement for civilians, labi na katong wala moagi sa ROTC, they have to undergo military training. Muna ang magpa-delay gamay, pero if you can show them that you are already a graduate of ROTC or better yet advanced ROTC, mas madali. Ang system good karon, since the advent of the NSTP law, since 2001, our college students now have the option of taking the CWTS o katong literacy training service. So ROTC now is only a part of the curriculum. So, but I can say, safely say, nga katong ni-graduate o college o niabot sa second year college way on or before 2001, kompleto na sila o ROTC, they can easily join the reserve force.
Okay, I'm going to leave you with some questions. Again, we're going to pause for a few reminders. The question I wanted to ask is it easier in short to become an Army reservist, or is it easier to become a Navy reservist or Air Force reservist than an Army reservist? And then number two, when we come back, we'll talk about what is the status of the mandatory ROTC. Pagbalik sir. Okay, we're still talking to Rear Admiral RAMIL Enriquez. He is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Reservists and Retiree Affairs. My pending question, Admiral, is it true, because there are stories around, that it is easier to become a Navy reservist, an Air Force reservist, than an Army reservist? I mean, are there certain peculiarities, and can your office somehow look for a way to standardize all the requirements and the movement of papers?
I cannot really say mas dali ang Army o Navy o Air Force. They have their own peculiarities. It really depends on your inclination. Kay naami sa Navy Reserves na ay Navy nga sailors na ay Navy nga Marines. Pero ang katong Marines pasakyo nimo og barko magbagulbol kay lisod ko no. Just like nga ang mga Navy kung dat-on nimo sa training nga to sa Army siguro maglisod pero kung on the other hand ang Army dat-on nimo sa barko sa Navy maglisod ka. So these services have their own peculiarities. Pero basically the POI, the program of instruction sa atong mga military orientation training, basically the same. We would like to give them basic military training. So parang generic na siya.
How about the how about the application process? The application. How about the application process?
I think it's the same.
Same lagi hapon.
Because as far as our policy is concerned, it's the same. We have the same system for security and checks. And the application is basically the same. But we do not really delve into the nitty-gritty of the requirements kay we are supplying the general policies to be followed by the major services. And basically, they are the same. So, dili ko makaingon which one is easier. Unless you are talking about katong training nga gikuha ni Matteo Botticelli. Lain na to siya, advanced training na to siya katong sa Ranger.
Yes.
Ang iyang military orientation training is basically the same throughout the major services.
I see.
What we had for Senator Pacquiao when he entered the reservist is the same kung anong gikuha ni Mayor Sara Duterte sa Davao. Basically pareho lang.
We want to find out what is the status of the mandatory ROTC now. I mean, the bill, is it pending in Congress? And because President Duterte is really very gung-ho about supporting this, and at least we're fortunate there is a president who is really pushing for a mandatory ROTC. But where is it now, and what is happening to this bill?
Okay, let me give you a bit of background there. The president really wanted the reinstatement of the mandatory ROTC. Siguro kitando we experienced mandatory ROTC during our college days.
Yes.
But the advent of NSTP made it optional. So the president said that to help build our youth and help in nation building, we reinstitute ROTC. However, he mentioned that he wanted the ROTC to be senior high school. So, before I came here sa J9, way back mid-June 2019, the bill was already in Congress actually, was on third hearing, third reading. Unfortunately, naabtan og sarado sa Congress, so it was again refiled on the 18th Congress. So right now, the Committee on Higher Education and the Committee on Basic Education, sila ni Congressman Romulo o si Congressman Marco are hearing the case. But there are now other proponents to bring back ROTC back in college instead of senior high. Kaya na ako na yung mga I leave the legislation to our lawmakers, pero the argument are if we do it in senior high school, we are basically training minors.
Yes.
So this argument was countered by DND in a sense that when the former ROTC was in first and second year college, basically this is the same age group that underwent ROTC. So what's the difference between then and now? So right now, it's the committee is already heard have initial hearings, so they have yet to schedule another hearing. Ang problema lang naabtan lagi ta og COVID, so I hope na the committees will now do some hearings even through the new normal kanang online na lang. So we are waiting for the good chairpersons of the Committee on Education and Higher Education to conduct another hearing to this.
Clarification, Admiral. This is going to be mandatory for state colleges only, universities, or all colleges and universities, including private institutions?
Actually, the original position, the current position of the Department of National Defense is still in senior high school.
Okay.
Uh, we are talking about 11,200 senior high schools
Wow.
and approximately 4 million students. So we are still preparing for that. The other issues are where will the funds come from?
And instructors, Admiral. How about the instructors also? If all of a sudden you have about 4 million students.
Exactly. If we have 11,200 schools, we need 11,200 commandants.
Yes.
But ingon ang Army, Navy, of Air Force na we cannot spare that many personnel. So we proposed several sources of commandants, instructors. First, just like our citizens arm training, army training when we were high school, the schools nagpadala sila og somebody to undertake the commandant's course. For example, katong high school ko sa Cebu City National Science High School, ang among commandant that time was our PE teacher actually.
Okay.
So right now we are also prepared to do trainings for our prospective commandants. That's the first source kay aron organic na sa school ang commandant o ang DepEd na ang mo-take charge sa iyang pay and allowances. Second, we have advanced ROTC students. We can tap them kay kung mawala na ang ROTC sa college, the advanced ROTC students will teach in the high school. Number three, we can also ask or direct our units close to the school so they can provide supervision, close supervision. And of course, we have in our Army organizations, we have the RCDGs who can supervise and the under counterparts in the Navy and the Air Force. So basically, we have 5 sources of instructors for that. Ang amo lang, ang challenge lang ani is kanang ilang mga buildings, asa magikan ang ilang mga buildings, asa magikan ang ilang mga uniforme. So in fact, during the hearing in the Senate, there was a proposal that the students will go to class, ROTC class in white t-shirt and maong uniform. Pero inopost to ni Senator Gordon. Sabi na hindi pwede yan. Pag may military nga, dapat naka-uniform sila pag papasok. Pero just to answer the fund requirement for uniforms, we initially proposed that. But it depends really on what will the law come out by virtue of the current deliberation of the committees on education and higher education.
The other graduates of literacy and civil welfare, for clarification purposes, are they considered reservists? Do they also have serial numbers? And how are we going to be able to somehow use them, employ them in nation building and for maybe security purposes?
Actually, if you look into the NSTP law, the graduates of the literacy service program and the civil works training welfare, civil welfare, are actually supposed to be utilized by the Department of National Defense or through the Office of the Civil Defense. Ang hindi lang namin pinapakialaman doon because they are really not military. So, labas sa amin. Pero,
are they reservists? Are they considered reservists? And do they have serial numbers?
As far as being reservists are concerned, they still have to volunteer to be and join the reserve force. If not, they cannot be considered reservists.
Is that where the...
Pero they can render, Eric, they can render national service according to the training that they receive, whether it's a literacy, or to contribute towards nation building.
Is this the same very group that we can make use of in the 1987 Constitution, Article 2, Section 4, regarding rendering by law personal, military, civil service? Sila ba yung tinutukoy nito?
Hindi ako pakiulit nung
yung Article 2 Section 4 1987 Constitution The government may call on the people to defend the state, and in fulfillment of this provision by law, they may be required to render personal, military, and civil service. Ito ba yun sila? Pwede ba natin gamitin sila for civil service or to render personal service?
I'm not sure on the accuracy kasi ang 1957 Constitution was done in the 1987, but the NSPP law was created 2001.
Yes,
So I don't know the correlation. But our Constitution really calls on the citizenry to help defend our nation. So kung law versus the Constitution, I believe the Constitution will prevail. So in this case lang, yung NSPP tsaka literacy program, they are specialized. They may come later, but they are still covered by that aspect kung interpretation of the Constitution.
In RA 7077, this is Article 6, Section 14, and I'll just read briefly through it. It talks about compulsory military registration and training, where all male 18 to 25 who are not reservists must register for military instruction. What is now the status of these provisions? This was way back in 1991, almost 23 years ago.
Yes. There is really that provision which supposedly will cover the male population of the Philippines who did not undertake ROTC. Kasi by statistics, na ay high school na mukutob, then ROTC then during those times were on college. So na ay inighunong sa high school, hindi na sila makakaya nung covered nung ROTC. The same still is being observed now. So the particular law, RA 7077, aims to cover those who are not trained militarily. So because this is primarily due to the fact that our Constitution will call on every Filipino citizen to render service to the Philippines, sample defense. 18 to 25 is basically what we call the fighting age of Filipinos. So we need them because they are in the prime na kayang makipaggera talaga. However, wala pa talagang significant moves na magawa to ng mga LGUs because the LGU in that particular article, the LGU or the local government unit will be the one in charge of creating that. Although ang nakalagay doon, Department of Defense will do the canvassing. Pero in the armed forces, we already noticed that, but we are trying to move and request the Department of National Defense to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Department of Interior and Local Government. We have partial success in terms of that training when the former mayor of Quezon City, Herbert Bautista, initiated the creation of a brigade in Quezon City. The same is also true with the province of Maguindanao. Governor Max Mangudadato organized a brigade, reservist brigade out of his employees from the LGU, and we hope that will extend to everyone, to every male citizen between the age of 18 and 25. So if ever the time comes now, we need to have people fighting or creating, doing service to the nation. We have a pool of people who are able-bodied to fulfill the task.
Undergo military training. I noticed that in the training, or the provision says the training must not be more than 6 months. 6 months is if we're talking about funding, will be a little steep, no? I was looking at the South Korean model, where they also have something similar, and it only takes, they only have a training of 5 weeks, military training for 5 weeks of students from 18 to 35 years old. So I don't know whether we can look at this and maybe just make the training 5 weeks, because in Korea, after they get 5 weeks of military training, mandatory training, that's when they're assigned to the different battalions. Admiral.
That is a very good point, Eric. Maybe we can do our consultation with major services if they are amenable to that provision. Basically, we would like to to shorten the training, but at the same time, do not sacrifice the quality of the training that our people will have.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Naitabo man na sa mga atong mga basic na soldiery courses, 6 months.
Uh-huh.
Gi-pattern na nakaroon sa atong mga training institutions.
Uh-huh.
But gladly we will would like to take a look into that aspect, South Korean model.
Uh-huh. The history usually instructs us about how we move forward, no? If we don't learn from history, we will again repeat it. During World War II, we had about 10 divisions, reserve divisions, and 2 regular divisions. Putting it at about 10,000 per division or maybe 25,000 per division, that was only about 120,000 to 300,000 standing army. So in the new millennia, in the new world for the Philippine National Defense, would 1 million be good enough as a ready reserve? Or do we need more? Or should this be augmented with personnel and logistics?
Right now, yung ingon nimo requirement when in terms of going to war, if 1 million is enough.
Oo.
Actually, that figure was put on to us, put tasked on us
Oo.
by virtue of the National Defense Strategy.
Okay.
But our people from the intelligence are constantly evaluating the threat
Yes.
that the country faces. So
Oo.
that figure might vary along the way. But to tell you, as of now, the current Chief of Staff, General Gilbert Gapay, tasked me to prepare a 5-year development plan for the reserve force.
Aha.
Sabi niya, we need 1%, so we need 1 million, so let us make a plan. Currently, the AAP has a transformation roadmap up to year 2028.
Aha.
But just for modesty, we make initially a five-year plan.
Aha.
So in this plan, we will have 182 units in readiness condition 2,
Aha.
122. Let me clarify.
Mhm.
Currently, our baseline, we have 122 ready reserve units.
Aha.
So in 5 years, we would like to have that increased na to 182.
Aha.
Yung ang mga ready talaga, yung pwedeng ilaban.
Aha.
Ngayon, sa second echelon, right now we have 72.
Aha.
We would like that by 2025 to be 122. And we will do this by recruiting 10,000 new reservists per year.
Mhm.
Now, I know the figures are very glaring. If you recruit 10,000 per year, it will just boil down to 50,000 in 5 years.
Mhm.
But we also need to take into account that we need also to improve our training institutions,
Aha.
their absorptive capacity. Kasi
Yes.
if you train people, we need barracks for them,
Yes.
we need a place to train. So we need to also take into consideration the existing facilities that we have.
Aha.
But right now, we also would like to cater to 42 mobilization centers.
Aha.
But we envision to only have initially 7 for 2021 and the rest by the 5 years. Kasi ang mga mobilization centers ay minsan non-existent, dilapidated. So sa Army per RCDG dapat mayroong isa
Aha.
at least. Then sa Navy, we also would like to have them there per reserve centers. They have one each. So on. So all in all, we envision to, for the next 5 years, 42 centers for mobilization.
Uh-huh.
Kaya right now, they really don't have a place to report to when calling for them.
What?
So
Okay.
ang among gikuan daw, ang among gihinay-hinayan
Oh.
because we need to, I am fighting for the yung kapakanan ng ating mga reservists kasi medyo napapabayaan na rin. So we need to give premium to their existence and their efforts. So we would like, the armed forces would like to compensate the effort that and the services that we are receiving from them.
Part of this 5-year development program, Admiral, appeal ba kaning mga caravan para lang ma-expedite ang kuan, ang kanabang murabag one-stop shop sa mga gusto mo apply as a reservist ba? So, mga caravan nga mo biyahe into the provinces and then to murabag one-stop shop para medyo ma-expedite ang process.
That is embodied in the directive that the GHQ will give the major services. Actually, tarong September 30, we will be meeting for our third quarter RRA family conference. That is part of my guidance to expedite. Normally, I wouldn't go down to the nitty-gritty on how the major services will implement this, but basically that's the ideal way of doing things. Na go to one place to recruit them and you process them.
And then, we talked about ready reserve. Of course, we can't leave this subject on reservists by not talking about the standby reserve. How important, how crucial are the standby reserve in terms of the entire scheme of national defense?
And the standby reserve and actually to include the retired reserve.
Yes.
These people can be called upon to go into the reserves for immediate deployment. Kaya ang atong mga reservists in category, ang atong mga first category, ang mga first ones to be called. Kung magbuwag na sila, diyan na magsugod ang atong mga second standby reserve. So in terms of conflict, we will first use the regular force. Ang atong ready reserve, ang second echelon, ang atong mga standby reserve, sila ang atong mga third echelon. So we need to organize and train them to be, para makibaw na sila when to move. So we need to know where they are and what training they have undertaken to be based kung saan sila kinahanglan.
Talking about the standby reserve, it's part of RA 7077 that there should be some kind of an annual assembly for standby reserves to update their records and their addresses. And for that matter, maybe I don't know if we can come up within the next 5 years for a national reservist registration all over the country so that we can really find out the warm bodies that are really on our paper.
Actually, that directive has been with the major services na kailangan meron silang tinatawag itong assembly test. So what we in general headquarters do is we check on them if they are really complying with that directive. In fact, I have a division here at OJ9 which goes around the country and goes to the ready reserve battalions, the brigade, to check on the accuracy of the data that is being forwarded here. Example, we would go to a certain ready reserve battalion in Southern Luzon. When we go there, we will check if they have this. The list of the reservists are really up to date. We would check on their equipage, their mobility, and the training that they have conducted. Just like what I have said earlier, we give leeway to the major services to perform this. Because what we at GHQ would do is just basically give them broad guidance and we will just check compliance. So we conduct our own inspections. Aside from the Army having their own inspector generals inspecting them, as a stopgap, as an added measure, we also conduct our own inspections.
Final word to everyone who is listening, who would probably want to become a reservist and who is currently also a real reservist now with the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Your final word, Admiral.
Thank you very much, Eric, for this opportunity of talking to you and reaching out to our people. We just celebrated our 41st National Reservist Week. And at this point, I would like to congratulate Brigadier General Erik Espina,
Thank
the
you.
commander of the 19th Officers Red Reserve Brigade of the Philippine Army, for being chosen as the best Red Reserve Brigade nationwide. This is a call to all our countrymen. The country needs people to perform tasks that your regular armed forces cannot by virtue of our strength. So we need people to do service to our country and help our countrymen develop for our socio-economic development. We need people to help maintain peace and order, deliver health services. We can see our reservists volunteering their time, effort, and sometimes personal money, especially in these times where the COVID pandemic is affecting everyone. So, in behalf of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and our Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Gilbert Capay, I am calling you to join the reserves and be part of the team that helps our country. Maraming salamat, Eric.
Okay. Daghang salamat, moto ang atong kahinabi sa tibok usa ka oras, si Rear Admiral Ramil Roberto Enriquez. He is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Reservists and Retirees Affairs dinha sa GHQ sa Camp Aguinaldo. Thank you very much, and this is Erik Espina. Palagi pong nagsasabi sa inyo, magmasid, makialam, higit sa lahat ay manindigan. Dahil wala pong magmamahal sa Pilipino kung hindi ang Pilipino. Daghang salamat, maayong gabi kaninyong tanan.